I remember when I was 8 years old, my grandparents took me and my parents to Italy, and so this was in 2001, and we went to Florence, which was like our favorite city that we went to, and we have family that lives in Tuscany, so my grandfather was really excited to go see them because it's been since he was like a small child since he got to see them. And so we went, since he got to like be there. I mean, they visited, but nothing. He wanted to show me because that's like what he remembers as a kid. Yeah. And so we went to their house, and they own a vineyard, sort of. It's really small. They just like grow grapes and then they make like wine, but I don't really think it's like marketed at all. Mm-hmm. But they took us out to lunch, and it was like 40 people, like the whole family came, and it was so interesting to see like such a different culture, because it was so different than something that we were used to, even like within my family, like here. Mm-hmm. I mean, like no one spoke English. We had a translator, so
you had to get a translator?
Yeah,
to your family?
To talk to our family. And I was 8, so there were like a bunch of kids, but like there was only like one girl that like knew like any English, and she could just like count to 10 and like say good morning. And so it was just like hard to like play with them, but it was like as the day like went by, like we kind of like got it, like using hand signals and like trying to like figure out what we were talking about, and it was just interesting to like see how different cultures like live, because I'm Italian, but like I've grown up in America my whole life, and so like they're Italians growing up in Italy, and it's so different. And the funny story that I'll always remember from that day was my dad really doesn't drink alcoholic at all, and so they grow wine, so they wanted him to drink their wine, and so he just poured himself like a little bit because he doesn't drink wine, but they like forced him to drink it. And then my mom was gonna have a glass of wine, like their wine that they make, but my dad poured it for her, and he poured it like this with his hand like backwards instead of like this, like you would pour a normal bottle, because that's the way he was sitting. And apparently in their culture, like that's bad luck to like pour wine like that. So you have to switch glasses like with the person that you like poured. So he was stuck with, and you have to drink the whole thing. So he was stuck with this like full glass of wine, and he had to drink the whole thing. Yeah.
Sweet.
So that's my story, and it just helped me appreciate like where I've come from, because I lived in like the country, and it would be so different. So.
Yeah. Well, my story isn't as funny. Well, it's like it's more about my grandparents and my grandmother. She was born in, I think, like late 1930s, like 37-ish. And because she was a girl, like at that time, and her parents weren't very wealthy, like she wasn't really wanted, and so they kind of sold her, or gave her away to this orphanage where she would work and like support herself, and which is something she couldn't have done if she had just like stayed, because it would be impossible during that time as like a girl. And so she worked at this orphanage and like lived there, and one of the people who like oversaw all the kids, all the girls, was like a matchmaker. And so like they would like pair up girls like with boys at like really young ages. And so my grandmother was matched with my grandfather in China when they were like 5.
Whoa.
Yeah, and so they were matched then. I don't know like the formal terms for it, but it's weird to think that like someone in my family was like an arranged marriage. But and so they were matched, and like they lived in different cities and towns, and then my grandfather moved to the United States when he was in his late teens, kind of, with his whole family. And so he moved to the United States, and then when she came of like marrying age, and like he was a senior in high school, kind of, I think. He was 18 and she was 16. She flew over by herself and married him, like someone, like into a family she's never met. Like she didn't speak any English and like didn't know anything about American culture, and just was here and married him, like this random guy. But like they ended up having a really good relationship.
That's awesome.
Like they were like perfect for each other. I guess it's like one of those things that just like happens, you know, like you end up growing up with someone in a way and it works out. But yeah, so she was like 16 when she came, and then she had children really early, and like, so she's pretty young for like, my oldest aunt is like almost like she's like 50, in her like mid-50s. And so they got married and started a restaurant together, like a Chinese restaurant. They had 4 kids. And the weird thing is that like her family from back home, like her parents eventually had like sons, and so one of them moved here and started a family and everything, and so somehow like a few, like 10-ish years ago, like all of a sudden there were all these people at my grandma's house. They found her, like her relatives found her from China, and so she was like, oh, like, you're my family. It was like a really weird situation, and like she didn't really accept them as their family. Like we see them every like 4 years maybe. I think they live in Connecticut, and it's just like strange because I'm like related to these people, but like my grandmother doesn't even really acknowledge them as her family. So